the supreme abode and purifier, the absolute truth, transcendental and original, and you are the unborn and all pervading beauty. All the great sages, such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa, proclaim this of you, and now you yourself are declaring it. Sarvam etaritamanye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidhur deva nadanavaha. Accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the gods nor demons, O Lord, know thy personality. Text 15. Svayam evatman Natmanam Bhavana Bhutesha Deva Deva Jagatpate. Translation. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your own potencies, O origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, O supreme person, Lord of the universe. Text 16. Vaktum arhasyashe shena divya hyauti birlokan imam stvam dvapyatushtasi. Translation. Please tell me in detail of your divine powers by which you pervade all these worlds and abide in them. Text 17. Katam vidyam aham yogims tvam sada parichintayan keshu keshu chabanmaya. Translation. How should I meditate on you? And what? Text 18. Vistarenatmano yogam vibhutim cha janardana bhuya kataya triptirhi shinvato nasti me mritam janardana. Krishna, of your mighty potencies and glories, for I never tire of hearing your ambrosial words. Text 19. Shribta yashami divya hyatma vibhutayaha pradhanyata kurusheshta nastyanto vistarasya me. Translation. The Blessed Lord said, yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless. Text 20. Aham Atma Gude Kesha Sarva Bhutashaya Sthitaha. Aham Adi Evacha. Translation. I'm the creatures. I'm the beginning, the middle. Adityanam Aham Vishnur Jyoti Sham Ravir Am Shuman Marichir Marutam Asmi Nakshatrana. Translation. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. I am Marichi of the Maruts. And among the stars, I am the moon. Text 22. Vedanam samavedosmi. Devanam asmi vasavaha. Indriyanam manashchasmi. Bhutanam asmi Chaitana. Gods, I am Indra. Of the senses, I am the mind. And in living beings, I am the living force, knowledge. Back to text 12. 12 Days Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The supreme abode and purifier, the absolute truth and the eternal divine person and original, and you are the unborn and all pervading beauty. All the great sages, such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa, proclaim this of you, and now you yourself are declaring as the Supreme Lord gives a chance to the modern philosopher. For here it is clear that the Supreme is different from the individual soul. Arjuna, after hearing the essential 4 verses of Bhagavad Gita in this chapter, became completely free from all doubts and accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He at once boldly declares, "You are Param Brahma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead." And previously, Krishna states that he is the originator of everything and everyone. Men and demigods, out of ignorance, think that they are absolute and independent of the Supreme Lord Krishna. That ignorance, this is already explained in the previous verse by the Lord. Now, truth, in concordance with the Vedic injunction, it is not because Krishna is an intimate friend of Arjuna that he is flattering him by calling him the Supreme Personality. Arjuna says in these 2 verses is confirmed by Vedic truth. Vedic injunctions affirm that only one who takes devotional service to the Supreme Lord can understand him, whereas others cannot. Each and every word of this verse spoken by Arjuna is confirmed by Vedic injunction. So the Chatur Shloki was just spoken text uh, text 8 through 11, and Chatur just means 4. So 4 very of the most important verses of the whole Gita. I'll go ahead and read those again. Here's text 8. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Nine, the thoughts of my people, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss, enlightening. Text 10, to those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And text 11, out of compassion for them, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So these are very powerful verses here. And Arjuna is now completely convinced, and he's asking for more clarification. He wants to know more about the uh, a small glimpse, because his opulences are so extreme, so unfathomable. And Arjuna is doing that for his for us the reader, for all of mankind, because we need to know his opulences to increase our love for him. We need to remember him and know about his opulences. You know, Janma Karma Natimam Ati O Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, after leaving this material body, take his birth again, but attains my part of the process is knowing Krishna, because an atheist and the uh, people that don't know Krishna or aren't willing to hear about him, how can they remember him? You know, how well do you know someone if you don't know what makes them great? You know, their opulences, what to speak of Krishna. And so Krishna is always there. It's like one of those things of, oh, he because he's in every atom, you know. So it's one of those things where the materialist or the impersonalist or the atheist might say, well, where is he? Like like Hiranyakashipu, you know, where is he? Is he in this pillar? And they want to see him with their gross material senses, and they're not willing to really do, not really willing to spend time getting to know the Lord's opulences, or surrender their own false ego, surrender their own enjoyment, and put Krishna first, put God first. So they can't, you have to know the opulences to know Krishna. You have to know what are these opulences. And so Arjuna is asking that for benefit because he wants to. Krishna has said, uh, to remember me and think about me. So he's wanting some of his own. How are we to meditate upon you? Um, and sometimes you'll hear devotees talking about visualizing the Lord and meditating on the Lord's form like that. Um, and let me just grab something here real quick. It's like some paradoxes. God is all around us, and He's in every atom, and He's speaking to us through not always through gross words, but through His literature, like the Gita, and through Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. He's speaking to us. Um, he's obviously not always going to be right in front of us, and so we have to learn how to listen to his message. And he's all around us, even though we may not always be able to see him right in front of us in his glorious uh, two-armed form. But the three Vishnus, you've got Shorak, Karno Dakashayi Vishnu, created who entered into the Mahat Tattva, and then Garbo Dakashayi Vishnu, which created variety entered within all these separate little universes, and then Kishore Dakashayi Vishnu, who is entering into every atom as entering into the heart as super soul, and entering into every atom. Um, Karano Dakashayi Vishnu, also called sometimes Karanarna Bakashayi Vishnu. So there's a couple different names. Those three are sometimes called the Trimurti. So sometimes Trimurti, and sometimes Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu are also called the Trimurti. But you can also call the three Vishnus Trimurti, like that. Um, so we are not separate from. Here's kind of a paradox that most people have a hard time making it past. We are not separate from God. Yet at the same time, we are both of these traps of thinking that we are somehow separate from God. And then they're caught also in the trap sometimes of thinking that they are God. So an atheist will think that they're completely separate, or that there is no God. And so there's a couple traps. And then it's said, Prabhupada says, a creation cannot understand its own source. So understand its own source. Um, there's this story of like a salt doll that that um, that once is by the ocean and wants it's curious about the ocean, and so it goes into the ocean and it starts to dissolve like that. So the idea with these verses is that we hear so much about his opulences that we kind of dissolve false ego, and that we completely become um, uh, entranced with the literatures and with the stories and with the association of these, and with associating with his holy names. And he says he's the greatest sacrifice, and that is known to be the chanting the Maha Mantra is the great sacrifice. Here he's listing so many things which he is the greatest of, like the Himalayas, and of the Vedas, he is the Sama Veda, and the Sama Veda is the one that deals a lot with the musical aspect. In fact, it takes a lot of Verda and puts them to music, and so it's interesting that Krishna says that of the Vedas, he is the Samaveda. So he must like that one the most. Um, and I want to know his glory so I can really start to know him. Um, so these verses are delving into um, obviously the variations and attributes of Lord Krishna, and you know, symbolic representations like the Himalayas um, representing and the ocean representing his vastness. He's so vast, um, and the different divine manifestations, emphasizing his all-pervading and all-encompassing nature. The sun, even the sun, which sustains life and illuminates um, the world's this life giving, and including the fire of digestion, which are representing aspects of Krishna's divine energy, and even divine deeper understanding of uh, deepening Arjuna's understanding of the profound connection between the supreme and the material world, highlighting the omnipresence of the divine. Um, um, so, understanding these aspects of the supreme actually enhance one's devotion connection with the supreme. So, verses 12 through 13. I love how Srila Prabhupada says these verses are for the modern philosopher because it's clear that the supreme is different from the individual soul in this verse. Uh, Again, reading the verse, Arjuna said, "You are the supreme Brahman, the ultimate, the supreme abode and purifier, the absolute truth, and the eternal divine person. You are the primal God, transcendental and original, and you are the unborn, pervading beauty. All the great sages, such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa, proclaim this of you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me." Um, so it's obvious that Krishna is different from the individual soul through this verse. Um, and Srila Prabhupada says only those who take to devotional service can understand the Lord. So there's no understanding the Lord unless one follows this devotional path. Thinking of Krishna is smaranam, one of the 9 processes of devotional service. He's the cause of all causes, Srila Prabhupada says. And he says, unless one is in the disciplic succession, one cannot understand the Gita. It's not a purely intellectual endeavor. We grew up in school thinking, uh, if I study something, I can probably master it. If I study it long enough, I can master it. But the Gita is not quite that simple. We actually have to surrender to the disciplic succession and study the Gita under the guidance of Guru. Um, the 6 agents, and in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada mentions the 6 agents of sense the tongue, the genitals, the belly, anger, the mind, and words. So that's interesting. The 6 agents of gratification, including like anger. People are gratifying their senses through anger and through words. We see this a lot. Look at some of those reality shows from a few years back. It's just constant anger and words, and they're just gratifying their senses, trying to their show. And anger is a little bit of an indulgence, and so are mundane words. And text 14. O Krishna, totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the gods nor demons, O Lord, know thy personality. So even the demigods cannot, as elevated as they are, and as long as their life may be 311 trillion years, how can they know Krishna in full? How can the creation totally understand everything about the creation process? And Srila Prabhupada says Arjuna is teaching us in the mood, which is teaching us the mood in which we should accept Krishna's words. So, O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the gods nor demons, O Lord, know thy personality. So this is kind of a mood that we should accept Krishna's words. Arjuna is totally accepting as truth. He's completely surrendered. So we have to uh, take that mood of surrender and um, nine devotional uh, processes of devotional service is total surrender. Um, and then he calls him Keshava, and Srila Baladev Vijubhashana says that Keshava, the K represents Brahma, and the Sha represents Shiva, and the Va represents the ability of Krishna to bind them and to make them devotees. He binds them with knowledge of himself, making them his devotees. Yeah, the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita through the Parampara system was lost. And so Lord Shri Krishna is choose text 15. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your own potencies. O origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, O supreme person, Lord of the universe. So Arjuna is saying that only you know yourself and your potencies. You are the Lord of all beings, the God of all the gods, the supreme person, and the Lord of the universe. Purport, very nice purport here. The Supreme Lord Krishna can be known by persons who are in a with him through the discharge of devotional service, like Arjuna and his successors. Persons of demonic or atheistic know Krishna. Speculation that leads one away, and one who does not know Krishna should not try to comment on Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a statement of Krishna, and since it is the science of Krishna, it should be understood from Krishna as Arjuna understood it. It should not be received from atheistic persons. The supreme truth is realized in three aspects: as impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and at last as the supreme personality of Godhead, or Bhagavan. So at the last stage of understanding the absolute truth, one comes to the supreme personality of Godhead. Even a common man realize impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma, yet they may not understand God's personality from the verses of Bhagavad Gita, which are being spoken by this person, Krishna. Sometimes the impersonalists accept Krishna as Bhagavan, or they accept his authority. Yet many liberated persons cannot understand Krishna as Purushottama, the supreme person, the father of all living entities. Therefore, Arjuna addresses him as Purushottama. And if one comes to know him, still one may not know him as the supreme controller. Therefore, he is addressed here as Bhutesha, the supreme controller of everything. Still, one may not know that he is the origin of all the demigods. Therefore, he is addressed here as Deva Deva, the worshipable God of all demigods. And even if one knows him as the worshipful God of all demigods, one may not know that he is the supreme proprietor of everything. Therefore, he is addressed as Jagatpati. Thus, the truth about Krishna is established in this verse by the realization of Arjuna. And we should follow in the footsteps of Arjuna to understand Krishna as he is. Wow. So, so we have to understand all these things. We have to realize impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma. We have, and then God's personality is very important. Understanding God's personality and accepting his authority, but also the father of all living entities. And not only that, but as the supreme controller, not even, and also as the God of all demigods and as the proprietor of everything. So he owns everything. He is the source of everything. There's nothing beyond Krishna. That point is so clear now. It's so clear. And but we have to remember these points throughout every day, throughout every hour. And you know, someone who's uh someone who's 100, has lived 1,200 months, and then someone who's 25 has lived 300 months. So it's not so big of a difference, 300 months, 1,200 months. um and But we have to remember him throughout all of these months, and remember him because we don't know what may come tomorrow. um, and let's see here. It's text 15. um, 16. Please tell me in detail of your divine powers by which you pervade all these worlds and abide in them. So there's no doubt anymore in Arjuna's mind. Um, Text 17. How to meditate on you. In what various forms are you to be contemplated, O blessed Lord? So in chapter 6, Krishna mentioned Mad Gatanantir Atmana, thinking of Krishna constantly from within. So he's mana. And we want to do things only for Krishna's benefit, not for our own benefit. It's easy, even in Krishna consciousness, it's easy to even when we're making progress in Krishna consciousness as a neophyte devotee, I sometimes it's easy to still think, what am I going to get out of the deal? But Nishkama Karma Yoga means, no, it's no longer what am I going to get out of the deal. It's what's how can I please Krishna? What's Krishna going to get out of the deal? Am I following his instructions? Common And this is a nice in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, sorry. Uh he's so Krishna is guarded by his Yoga Maya energy. If we're under Yoga Maya, if we're going away from Krishna, we're under Maha Maya. 18. Tell me again, mighty potencies and glories, for I never tire of hearing your ambrosial words. Text 18. And so Arjuna is becoming more and more eager to hear. The common man who has no love for Krishna cannot think of Lord Sri Krishna, and therefore he has to think materially. So it's not knowing Krishna is dangerous because the person that does not know Krishna at all is forced to think materially. It's not like they have a choice, but so we have to let them know Krishna. We have to give the gift of a little bit of knowledge of Krishna, a little bit of showing them the appearance and activities, and then they can make the right choice. Then they don't have to think materially all the right now. There A lot of people are forced to constantly only think materially because they don't really have an alternative in their minds, and so they're forced to think materially. And um, speaking of materialists, you know, um, I would much rather be a servant than a slave, because there's so many people that are slaves to Maya and they don't even know it. You know, the hardest thing is convincing a slave that they are a slave. They don't see it. And so to be a servant is a very high position. To be a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, that's amazing. That's a very nice position. And a slave has control over what they're doing and over their time or anything. And so they don't even know they're a slave. And then but the servant is inside the house serving the master uh, directly or very close to directly. And so it's a much nicer position. So we need to turn the world into from change the world, from turn them all into from slaves of Maya into servants of Krishna, and they would be much happier, because there's no happiness without Krishna, and there's no happiness without a little bit of faith. We have to have a little bit of faith, um, and we have to know, you know, today, am I more like Hiranyakashipu, or am I acting more like Prahlad? Because I think sometimes we can go back and forth. Sometimes we may start thinking a little bit more like Hiranyakashipu, and so we and how he was able to teach, even at a very young age, he was able to teach this knowledge. So one doesn't have to, be one can be a child and teach this knowledge, and give this knowledge out. And the material world is actually quite boring, isn't it? I mean, how many mundane things can we take in, and before people say, gosh, there has to be something more. This is mundane. I'm not getting happiness out of this. Um, when people try to serve themselves and please and gratify their own sense, and it's going to take them down some bad pathways. Um, how many mundane podcasts, shows, movies, casinos, bars, concerts, restaurants can one go to until one gets bored? In all these places, they want your energy, they want the money, they want your money. They're not there for you if you don't show up with money, and so that's the material world. It wants your time and money, and it's not going to give you much, few grains of sand in return, after, once at the end of life. A day, and you can see the material energy when you look at a celebrity. Sometimes there's certain celebrities, you can tell they want to kind of almost be worshipped. The attention is a kind of worship, and you'll hear sometimes a celebrity may have already passed their heyday, but they may still say, "Oh, I." They may still have this thought that I can't go in public, even if they won't necessarily be hounded. They might want to still keep that idea. I've seen it, even though all they'd have to do is put on a hat or whatever, no one would notice them. But these celebrities, some of them, the biggest of the biggest, are thinking public because I'll be absolutely hounded, and it would be quite a wake up call if they did go out and they weren't hounded. That'd be quite a blow to their false ego. So they take so much water it's fruitless. Text 19. The blessed Lord said, "Yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of the O Arjuna. For my opulence is." Krishna starts this verse by saying, "Hunta, hunta te." Hunta means yes, but it's also kind of it's a tender yes. It's a tender yes. So hunta, yes, it's not possible to comprehend greatness of Krishna, his opulences. Why? Because we have imperfect senses. Conditioned soul has imperfect senses, prone to make mistakes, prone to illusion, and the cheating propensity. Um, and vibhuti indicates an exceptional opulence. Atma vibhutaya, personal opulences. Text 20. I am the self, O Gudakesha, seated in the hearts of all creatures. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Gudakesh. Arjuna, Prabhupada says, Gudakesh is a name for Arjuna, and Prabhupada says that is showing that Arjuna has conquered sleep, one who has conquered the darkness of sleep. So that means also that he's conquered the darkness of ignorance. Um, the sleep the sleep of unaware, sleeping and dreaming of Maya, or sleeping and not waking up, and understanding his true self. Um, um, 22. Oh, of the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. Of the demigods, I am Indra. Of the senses, purport. The difference between matter and spirit is that matter has no consciousness like the living entity. Therefore, this consciousness is supreme and eternal. Consciousness cannot be produced by a combination of matter. Such a great purport, short and so powerful. The difference so makes so much sense. The difference between matter and spirit is that matter has no consciousness like the living entity. Therefore, this consciousness is supreme and eternal. Consciousness cannot be produced by a combination of matter. So this consciousness is very powerful, and has to be guided. And the mind, he's listed as, of the senses, I am the mind. And is the mind, because why did he say the mind? Because the mind is the hardest sense to control. It's called the greatest because of that, and so it's represented by Lord Shri Krishna. Um, and Krishna, Krishna could make the whole world Krishna conscious, with the snap of his fingers. That's shows Krishna's magnanimous nature, that he could do all these devotees so much that he wants to give them the credit they can do it, and he wants uh, and this whole material world, this whole operation is there for our rectification, for the living entities. It's not here for us to enjoy and waste. And so how do we progress? Just keep on the path of Krishna consciousness, and occasionally, if you want even more growth, then just find a small weakness, or what that you might be able to work on, and then just kind of uh, focus on that, or find out, with singing, it's you can grow a little bit by finding the edge of how high or low you can sing. So, and then you can kind of just, yeah, you will finding a small weakness, and then get out the magnifying glass and kind of just work with that. And just by following the four regular principles and chanting Hare Krishna 16 rounds a day, you are progressing a lot. How different are we than just a few years ago? Um, and once does it, but over time we've picked up tens, hundreds, thousands of little things, and uh, Krishna just wants us to share our love of these conditioned souls, and also make sure that we are firmly in the boat as well. What any comments, questions? Yes, uh, Jagannath Prabhu.
Um, so I like what you were saying about remembering Krishna. It's a really big point, actually. I was listening to Radhe Shamprabhu. He's a disciple of Radhanath Swami, and actually, he says in a lecture that remembering Krishna is what the Guru is trying to teach us. But sometimes it seems like sometimes you know, you rub away when you do this, because it's like, I don't know why, but you it seems like you rub people the wrong way, and they may say some things that are like, that actually make you start rethinking, like, should I be doing what is said in the scripture, or am I being a sahajia, or what's going on? So I don't know how to deal with this, like, conflict in my mind. And it seems like the right thing to do, to always think about Krishna's pastimes, always think about his philosophy, always think about the pastimes of his devotees. It seems like the right thing to do, because I do feel happy when I think like that. But how should we go about it so that we don't rub others the wrong way?
So if we're remembering, is it happen? Does the rubbing the wrong way happen when you start speaking about it or speaking about Krishna's pastimes? Or
Yeah, it does.
okay, um, and then Krishna Shravanam, I maybe saw your hand go up. Would you be able to have any input on this one? Maybe some thoughts on that.
devotee and non-devotees. Yeah, devotee always non-devotee wants to um, forget Krishna. So if one is irritated by hearing Krishna's pastimes, then it means he's not on the platform of pure devotional service. He's he's mixed with some kind of contamination.
Mm. Jai Hare Krishna. Let me just make a note of that real quick. Was there, and then did you have another top comment or anything on that? On separate comment or anything?
Could you speak something more on what is the proof that consciousness is eternal?
Yeah, what is the proof that consciousness
Because
is?
the scientists have the idea that consciousness is a product of a combination of chemicals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they say that, and yet it's one of the things they cannot create. Um, it's said we read today that that's the difference between material and spiritual. Is material does not have consciousness, or matter does not have a non-living entity does not have consciousness, and a living entity has consciousness, and they cannot recreate consciousness. They're trying very hard, but um, to me, that's one of the proofs that it's eternal, is because the scientists can't create it. They can't create life, and everything that's alive has consciousness. And the um, the so and um, so consciousness is, and this Krishna consciousness is the best consciousness, and it is mystical and mysterious consciousness, this thing. And how does the soul uh, interact with its consciousness? And the soul and consciousness seems to be forever interlinked. Can you how can you separate the soul from consciousness? The consciousness may become covered for some time, but it's always there. And it's quite amazing. And there's um, this Brahma Jyoti and contained within. And so, since the spiritual world, there's no past, present, or future. So this consciousness means that it also consciousness also exists in that spiritual world where there's no past, present, or future. So that means consciousness is timeless and beyond duality. So the scientists have a lot more studying to do, and I suggest they study the Bhagavad Gita as it is in the Srimad Bhagavatam and all of Srila Prabhupada's books. And was there any Jagannath Prabhu?
As you touched on this topic of how the soul and consciousness, they're eternally parts of each other. So we know that consciousness is eternal because we know that the soul is eternal. In the second chapter, it can't be cut by sword, withered by wind, burned by fire. So because the soul is eternal, then and because consciousness is simple soul, then we can conclude that consciousness is also eternal. And that's is that why that's why they can't put their finger on it, because the soul is so subtle that consciousness, you can't really tell consciousness because it's a symptom of the soul.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Mathurnath Prabhu.
I can think of 3 examples that might prove consciousness is eternal. One of them was given. I was listening to a class by Indradyumna Maharaj, and he was visiting a very opulent Buddhist temple while he was in Tibet, and there was all of these assembled Buddhists of all different ages, and then they invited him to stay and hear this bodhisattva speak, or this very so-called advance, this old man to walk out, and he sat down, and he was looking around, looking like the oldest person, the most wise looking person, and a 3-year-old comes walking up and hops up on the asana from their scriptures. So how would this be possible? This is a personality who barely can, who just learned to speak, who just learned to walk in like a year or two, from that time. So it shows that the progress, Krishna says that the progress we make on the path that we're following, there's no loss or diminution. It stays with the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking of an example that Dhanavir Maharaj gave one time regarding Lucifer or Satan or the devil, and in the Christian tradition, and he was explaining. He said, have you heard about the devil?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, do you know how he became the devil?" I said, "Well, he disobeyed God's orders. He wanted to enjoy separate from God, right? He was with God at one point, and then he disobeyed God, reigned in this realm called hell." Yes, that's correct. But do you think he had the same body when he was with God? Do you think he had a devil's body? No, he didn't. He had a body suitable to be with God. And now that he's on this hellish planet, he has the same consciousness, but just has a different body. So also the Christian or Catholic traditions are also subtly teaching for various reasons. And
say that last part again.
They want to, cover it up for various reasons of the whether it's a social, political, or some type of reason. People. And the third example, let's see. I don't know if I can remember the third example I was going to state, but I mean, these are both. Oh yes, and the children of this movement. They
Yeah.
get born in a family of Vaishnavas, and they're maybe 5 years old, and they're playing kartals and mridanga like Gandharvas. This isn't really normal. This is a nice sign as well that consciousness it stays with the soul.
Yeah. It's like you'll see these children also that have memories of past lives and a reincarnation, and they'll be very young and they've never heard of 9/11, but they keep telling their parents, describing almost dying in 9/11, dying in those towers. There's some children like that that they seem to they obviously are describing to their parents these things. And so yeah, it's amazing. And so how does reincarnation work if that consciousness isn't eternal? The soul can transmigrate through all these different species. The consciousness is right there. This has been wonderful. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita as it is, ki jai.